All right, getting ready for an economic development coordinator interview, huh? Must be a little nerve-wracking.
Definitely can be. But don't worry, we're here to help you ace it. We're diving into some awesome resources from RoleCatcher. Their career and interview guides are amazing.
Yeah, those RoleCatcher guys are super helpful. So we'll break down some of those tough questions they might ask you and give you some insider tips from the career guide itself.
We'll even throw in how RoleCatcher's AI can, help you really tailor your answers in practice so you can walk in feeling confident and ready.
Sounds like a plan. First things first, let's get a clear picture of what an economic development coordinator actually does.
Absolutely. RoleCatcher describes them as the masterminds, kind of, behind a community's economic growth.
Mastermind's interesting. What does that involve exactly?
Well, think about it. They analyze trends, identify those potential risks, and come up with solutions, all while advising leaders on sustainable economic practices.
So it's a mix of big picture thinking and also those nitty-gritty details.
Yeah, it's a blend of analytical skills and, a genuine passion for making a difference in the community.
And speaking of community, the guide mentions working with all sorts of different people, government officials, business leaders, community representatives.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's all about collaboration. Imagine pitching your ideas for revitalizing a downtown area or attracting new businesses to a region that's struggling. It's that kind of real-world impact that this role offers.
Definitely sounds like you need some serious people skills for that.
Mm,
Okay, let's dive into the interview questions, shall we?
let's do it.
RoleCatcher's guide starts with a classic. What experience do you have in economic development? Seems pretty straightforward, but how do you make your answer really stand out?
Right, it's a common question, so you need to make an impression. Think beyond just listing your past jobs. Talk about the skills you gained, challenges you overcame, and the results you actually achieved. Showcase that you've got those analytical abilities, communication skills, and a strong understanding of economic principles. That's what the guide really emphasizes.
So instead of just saying, I worked on Project X, you'd want to say something like,
In Project X, I analyzed market trends and developed a strategic plan that led to a 10% increase in local business investment.
ah, I see. So quantify those results.
Exactly. Numbers speak volumes. And this is where RoleCatcher's AI can be super helpful.
Oh, how so?
It can actually analyze the job description and pick out those keywords, the specific skills and experience they're looking for.
That's awesome. So you can tailor your response to hit those key points.
Exactly. All right, ready for question number 2.
Hit me with it.
What is your approach to identifying potential economic development opportunities? This one's all about strategic thinking.
Okay, so how do you walk them through that process?
Start by thinking about where you begin. Do you dive into data analysis first? Or maybe community surveys, stakeholder interviews? The guide highlights being proactive and innovative in finding opportunities that match the community's needs and goals.
Sounds like they want someone who's not just a number cruncher. They want someone who can connect the dots between data and real-world solutions.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget the power of examples. Did you find a gap in the local market? Or maybe you spotted a trend suggesting a potential growth area. Bring those real-world experiences to life.
Those real-world examples always make things so much clearer. Okay, let's move on to question number 3. How do you prioritize economic development initiatives? This one seems tough, especially with budget constraints, which the guide mentions as a common challenge in this field.
Yeah, you're right. It's about showing you can think strategically and make those hard decisions. Describe your system for evaluating projects. Do you consider the economic impact, community needs, long-term sustainability, maybe alignment with certain policy goals? You've got to have a framework.
So if they throw a curveball and ask about, say, prioritizing a business incubator versus workforce development, you'll be prepared.
Exactly. Don't shy away from mentioning data in your decision-making either. Maybe you score projects based on potential return on investment, or use data to pinpoint the community's biggest needs.
That data-driven approach shows you're not just winging it. Okay, question number 4. How do you measure the success of economic development initiatives? Seems like a natural follow-up.
For sure. And another chance to show off those analytical skills. What metrics would you track? Job creation, business growth, increased tax revenue, maybe even mention specific tools or software you've used.
So if I've used economic modeling software or have experience with data visualization tools, this is the time to mention it.
Absolutely. They might even throw a curveball and ask about a time when an initiative flopped. What did you learn from that?
So it's not just about bragging about successes. It's about showing you can learn from mistakes and adapt.
Yep. And if you're feeling a little unsure about any of these questions, remember RoleCatcher's AI can help you practice and get personalized feedback. It's like having a mock interview with a virtual expert.
So it analyzes your answers and suggests ways to make them clearer, more concise, more impactful.
You got it. Even gives you feedback on your delivery, so you'll be confident and prepared when you walk into that interview. All right, so these next few questions from RoleCatcher's guide, they really get into a crucial part of economic development, making sure those initiatives are inclusive and equitable.
Makes sense. It's not just about boosting the economy overall, right? It's about creating opportunities that benefit everybody in the community.
Exactly. So question number 5 asks, how do you ensure that economic development initiatives are inclusive and equitable? This is your chance to really show them you understand those DEI principles and how they apply to this field.
The guide mentions experience working with diverse communities or advocating for equity in economic development projects is like a huge plus.
Oh yeah, definitely a big plus. Think about how you can share some examples of, how you've brought in community voices when planning projects, or maybe how you addressed those systemic barriers that might prevent certain groups from fully taking part in economic opportunities.
So if I worked on a project that specifically helped underserved communities or maybe helped create a more inclusive business environment, those are good things to highlight.
Absolutely. All right, question number 6 changes gears a little bit. It asks, how do you collaborate with other departments and stakeholders to support economic development initiatives? This is where you show off those teamwork and communication skills.
Because economic development isn't a solo mission, right? It takes building relationships and working effectively with a whole bunch of different people,
Yeah.
from government agencies to community organizations, like the guide says.
Right. Think back to projects where you had to juggle all those different stakeholders. How'd you make sure everyone was on the same page working towards that common goal? What were some of the challenges, and how'd you navigate those tricky situations?
So if I've ever had to mediate between groups with different interests or come up with some creative solutions to make everyone happy, those are good examples to share.
Yeah, for sure. Question number 7 is all about your professional development. How do you stay up to date on economic development trends and best practices? This shows your commitment to constantly learning and growing.
Because things change so fast, right?
Right.
Especially in a field like economic development. Staying current is essential.
You got it. Use this as a chance to showcase how you take initiative in your learning. Do you go to industry conferences? Are you part of any professional organizations like IEDC? Do you read publications or newsletters? Show them you're engaged.
Speaking of professional development, the guide mentions the CECD credential can be super valuable in this field. If you're going for that certification, now would be a good time to mention it.
Definitely a good point. It shows that dedication to your professional growth and that deep understanding of economic development principles. Before we jump into the last 2 questions, can we circle back to RoleCatcher's AI for a sec?
Yeah, sure. It's more than just tailoring your answers to the job description, right? It can actually give you feedback on how you present yourself.
Right. It analyzes those responses and suggests ways to make them clearer and more concise, more impactful even. Plus, it gives you feedback on your delivery. It's like having your own personal interview coach.
That kind of personalized feedback would be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, ready for the final 2 questions?
Let's do it. Question number 8 takes us back to community engagement. How do you engage with the community to gather feedback and input on economic development initiatives?
So it builds on that earlier question about inclusivity, but takes it a step further.
Yeah.
It's about showing you're dedicated to bringing in those community voices every step of the way.
Exactly. Community engagement, it's the heart and soul of effective economic development. Think about specific examples of how you've done that. Have you facilitated community meetings, conducted surveys, or used any other methods to get input from the people who actually live there?
Have you ever dealt with pushback from a community group that was worried about how a project might impact them? Like, how did you handle their concerns and find a solution that everyone could get behind? Those real-world experiences are gold.
Totally agree. And don't forget, RoleCatcher's AI can help you practice telling those stories in a way that's clear and compelling.
Awesome. All right, last question from RoleCatcher's interview guide. How do you prioritize diversity and inclusion in economic development initiatives? This one feels a bit similar to question 5, doesn't it?
It does, but there's a subtle difference. Question 5 was more about ensuring those initiatives were inclusive and equitable. This one is digging into your personal commitment to diversity. How do you personally promote those values?
So it's less about what you do and more about how you do it. how you, as an individual, champion diversity in your work.
You got it. Think about how you understand DEI principles and how you've actually put them into action. Have you ever run DEI training programs? Partnered with organizations that promote workforce diversity? Actively sought out different perspectives when making decisions? Those are all great examples.
Makes sense. And again, RoleCatcher's AI can help make sure your answers really connect with the specific values of the organization you're interviewing with.
Absolutely. It can analyze how they talk about things in the job description and suggest ways to weave in those keywords. It's all about showing you're on the same page.
Okay, so we've tackled all 9 questions from RoleCatcher's interview guide. We've talked about approaching each one, how to highlight those skills and experiences, and even how RoleCatcher's AI can give you that extra boost.
And we've sprinkled in some great insights from the career guide, giving you a better sense of the role, the challenges, the opportunities.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, let's take a few minutes to zoom out a bit, look beyond the interview itself, and explore some of the bigger career insights from the RoleCatcher Career Guide.
That's a great idea. Understanding the bigger picture can really inform your answers and show that you're passionate about this field.
Exactly. So the Career Guide talks about several different career paths for economic development coordinators. One is moving up within your organization, maybe becoming a senior coordinator or even a director. What are some of the other paths?
Another option is specializing in a specific area, like sustainability or technology. That can make you a real expert in your niche. The guide also stresses the importance of continuous learning, attending conferences, getting those certifications, and staying on top of industry trends.
Speaking of trends, the guide points out that technology is playing a bigger and bigger role in economic development, which makes you wonder about the future, doesn't it?
It definitely does. What do you think the future holds for this field with technology changing everything? That's something to think about as you prep for this interview and as you picture your career path.
We'll dig into some of those big picture questions in the final part of our deep dive. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're back. We covered those tough interview questions, explored some career paths, but now it's time to think big picture. Put on those futurist glasses.
Yeah, like we touched on earlier, technology's impact on economic development is massive. The RoleCatcher Guide really emphasizes that.
So let's brainstorm. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
how do you see technology shaping this field? What opportunities, what challenges come to mind?
Well, data analysis is the first thing that pops into my head. Think about how much data is out there now. Consumer spending habits, real-time traffic patterns.
It's mind-boggling, really.
It is, but also incredibly valuable if you know how to use it right.
Totally.
Imagine using that data to really pinpoint those areas that are prime for investment, or tailoring strategies to super specific community needs.
That kind of granular detail, that could be a game changer. But it also brings up questions about privacy and using data responsibly, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. That's where the human element is so important. Technology provides these powerful tools, but it's up to us, the professionals, to use them ethically or responsibly.
It's finding that balance, right?
Yeah,
Between harnessing that potential and remembering the human impact of all those decisions.
couldn't have said better myself. Another area where technology is shaking things up is communication and collaboration. Think VR, AR, even just video conferencing.
Yeah, those tools could completely change how communities get involved in planning, right? Imagine residents doing virtual tours of proposed projects, or using AR to see how things could look after revitalization efforts.
It's making it more transparent, more accessible to everyone, not just the people sitting in the meeting rooms.
But we can't forget about the digital divide, right?
Uh-huh.
We need to make sure everyone has equal access to these technologies and opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. Equity has to be at the forefront of any advancements, for sure. Now, let's shift gears for a second and talk about automation. The RoleCatcher Guide didn't specifically mention it, but it's a big elephant in the room when you're talking about the future of work.
Definitely. Automation is changing the job landscape across every industry, and economic development's no different. How do we prepare communities for those shifts?
It's about investing in those workforce development programs. Give people the skills they need for the jobs of the future, the ones that require creativity, critical thinking, those skills that are harder to automate.
All right, so instead of just training them for specific jobs that might not even exist in a few years, it's about fostering adaptable, lifelong learners who can navigate a job market that's always changing.
Exactly. And economic development professionals, we have a key role to play there. Identifying those emerging industries, attracting the businesses that are creating those future-proof jobs.
It's being proactive, anticipating those changes, and positioning communities for success in a world where technology is constantly changing things.
Exactly. And, I don't want to make it sound like automation's all doom and gloom. There's another side to this coin. How can technology itself create new economic opportunities?
Good point. Look at the rise of the sharing economy, online marketplaces, platforms that connect freelancers with clients across the globe.
Right. It's creating totally new ways to work, to earn a living, to be part of the global economy. Economic development professionals, we need to understand how to use these platforms to benefit our communities.
It's about embracing that entrepreneurial spirit that technology often brings, providing the resources and support so individuals and small businesses can thrive in this new digital world.
Absolutely. It's seeing technology not as a threat, but as a tool, for empowerment and economic inclusion.
Love that perspective. So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that technology's role in economic development is a mixed bag, right?
It is. Lots of incredible opportunities and some big challenges, too. Navigating it all takes foresight, adaptability, and a commitment to doing things ethically and equitably.
It's pretty exciting to think about what the future holds. For this field, and for you as you're getting ready to step into this role, remember the most powerful tools you have are your ability to think critically, adapt to change, and always keep those human-centered values at the heart of your work.
Yeah, best of luck in that interview, and don't stop asking those big questions. The future of economic development depends on it.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time as we explore another fascinating topic.